So now this is something very useful in our coronavirus times. This is the use of used to. Okay, used to or would. Okay, so for example, I used to go out without worrying about what I touched. Okay, last year I would go running without a mask. So these are things about the past, and this is the pre-COVID-19 era. Okay, so this is what we're going to be looking at today. Okay, used to and would for the past, not would the conditional. Okay, like if I were rich, I would buy a Ferrari. That is conditional for the future. Okay, this would is for the past. Okay, so go to your books, page 13. Okay, this is from the listenings that you did the other day. Okay, so I need you to read the examples and then answer these questions. This is like discovery phase. This is for you to realize how these structures are being used. Okay, so one thing before. Okay, state is things that don't change. Okay, for example, I am 38 years old. That's a state that may change, but in the future. Or I have 2 children. That's a state. Okay, it can change or not in normal circumstances. Whereas a habit is something that you do. Okay, like you go running every day, you check Instagram every day. So that is a habit, that is an action that you do. Okay, so a habit is like actions, state is like situations, or you live in elder, that's a state. Okay, so in this case, past state and past habit. Okay, so take your time, read the sentences carefully, and answer these questions. Okay, so pause the video and get started. Okay, so make sure you've done it first, otherwise this is useless. So does she still watch videos? I used to be obsessed. Does she still watch videos? Oh, sorry, this one. I used to watch a lot of videos on YouTube. Okay, the one about YouTube. So does she now? No, she doesn't. Okay, because it's I used to. Used to is for things that you did in the past regularly, but you no longer do. So it's no longer true. Is she still obsessed? I used to be obsessed. So is she still? No. Okay, this is what we said about the past. Did her mother listen to 70s music? My mother would often play. So did she? Yes, in the past. Okay, notice did she listen? Now, which underlined verb describes a past state, a situation? Okay. Be obsessed is a situation, it's a state. Okay, like I'm tired right now. That's a state. It's not an action. Now, which underlined verbs, you had a clue here, describe a past habit? So watch is an action. So I used to watch, I did that repeatedly. Okay, like 20 videos a day. So I repeated that action. Okay, so that's number 5. And would play 70s disco music. So her mother did that repeatedly. Okay, it was an action that she did. Okay, so which of the underlying verbs can you use to describe both past states? This is funny. This is in a B2 test that I've just prepared this morning. Both, they had to write and. They had both something and something else. Okay, so which one you use to describe both states and habits? Used to. Okay, so used to for past states or past habits. Not if it happened once. You can't say, yesterday I used to get up at 8 o'clock. No. When I went to high school, I used to get up. So for a long time, a repeated action. But you can't say, yesterday I used to. Okay, for that you say, yesterday I woke up. Specific in the past, so you'd use past simple. Okay, so used to. Watch, repeat action, used to be. For states, I used to have a bicycle until it was stolen. Okay, past states and past habits. So used to is correct in both cases. Remember, would, okay, is only, okay, we said here, a past habit. So we said used to and would. Okay, would can be used, apart from the conditional, can be used for repeated actions in the past. That is past habit. Okay. Now, we're going to I don't think so. We're going to check the grammar reference first. So we look at the grammar, you can highlight it. Okay, so you go to page 140, 40 something, no? 41. Okay, 141. Okay, so let's see. I highlighted this before. So you've got it here. You can highlight it. So used to plus the infinitive means infinitive without to. Well, it doesn't matter. The to is here. You can say used plus infinitive. Doesn't matter. Okay. So habits and states that do not occur now. Okay. So people used to buy CDs. And then notice the question when you ask we did, used to do, and in the negative, I didn't used to. Now, something very important, write it down, please. Now, this is an easy way for me to know if you actually listen to this. Write it down. For present habits, don't use I used to get up at 12. No, now that you don't have high school. Okay. Well, I'm going to put this. Let's see what it is. Okay. Between stars. That is impossible. Okay, you can't say that. If you want to talk about the present, you say 3, 2, 1. I usually get up at 12. Okay, for present habits, you say usually and present simple. This is a mistake that people make very often. So please, 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 this is impossible. You can use it for the past, for the present. Okay, you can use this again for the past, for the present. I usually get up, end of story. Or I often, or I normally get up. Now, so these habits and states. Now, would, okay, past habits, repeat actions, what I said before, but not with past states. Okay, I'm sorry, it's difficult to highlight this. Okay, so you can say I would have a bicycle when I was little. I used to have or I had a bicycle. Okay, so whenever you can use would, you can always use used to. I would play football every weekend. I used to play football. I would go to my grandparents' country house in summer. I used to go. Okay, those whenever you can use would for the past, you can use used to. Would is used a lot in books. Okay, so I don't know if you've read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I read it in English. I started reading it with my son in English, and then I think he read it alone, and that appeared a lot. Okay, because it's like when you are narrating what happened in the past repeatedly, then you'd say would a lot. Okay. Now, what I told you before about past simple. Okay. In these cases, nearly every time, it's always correct to use past simple. Okay. So when it is clear, okay, when it is clear that you're talking about a state or a habit in the past simple can be used. For example, when I was a child, I walked to school every day. That's correct. When I was a child, I had a bicycle. But normally you need some context to make it clear that it happened for a long period. Okay, if you say I had a bicycle without context, it's a bit strange. In any case, with all three, it's common to use some context. So I used to go running without a mask before the crisis. Okay, so you would normally give a time reference, but anyway. Okay, so notice that past simple is usually correct. Okay, when I went to high school, I always got up early. So you'd use always, for example, or use something like every day. Okay, like here, you see, you have this idea of repetition appears here. When you use used to, then it's not so necessary to include this idea of repetition because used to already gives the idea of repetition or would. Okay, so now you have an exercise there. Okay, right after this, it doesn't appear here. Okay, I don't know if I can do it. If I do like this, I don't know if it appears. It may. Yep. The only thing is that now I can't show the answers. Okay, so now decide if one or both verbs are possible. Okay, so you have to remember this. Especially, you have to remember that would can be used for states. That is the main thing. And then you can't say would, no, used to when it's something specific in the past. Okay, so Decide if one or both verbs are possible and try to understand why. Okay. So 3, 2, 1. Make sure you stop the video. Okay. So I'm going to give you the answers. So number 1, when I was 6 years old, my best friend was. Why can't it be would? Think about it. Okay. Be is a state. So you can't use would with states in the past. Okay. You can use it with conditional. I would be. If I were a millionaire, I would be at home all day. Okay. Now, Billy and I, now, both are correct, but used to sit is better because used to sit gives the idea of something that happened repeatedly. Billy and I sat next to each other in class, could be on one occasion. It's not very clear, but it would be correct. Okay, but it's true that without this idea of repetition or giving a context of time, past simple sounds a bit strange. Okay, so I'll put like a question mark here. Better in this case, since you don't have a time reference of every day when we were in the fourth course, better to use used to. Okay, our families again have what kind of verb is have? Okay, it's a state, so you can't use would or wouldn't. So our families didn't have past simple at that time. You see, you use past simple, but you are giving a reference of time. For every evening, okay, play. What kind of verb is play? Is there movement? Yes, so it's an action verb. So both are correct. We would play in the park or we played in the park because it's already clear that it happened repeatedly, so you can use past simple. Now, go, action or state. Is there movement when you go? Yes. So this is an action verb. So you can use both. We didn't used to or we wouldn't. Okay? In the past. Now, next one. You have, I know you love this exercise. Some of you do. Most of you hate it. Okay, you have to put the words in order. Okay? So stop the video and try to do it. This will help you a bit. Then sometimes when you write sentences, you think about how you write them in Spanish and you write them in a strange order. So this will help you realize. Okay, so get ready. Okay, it's not that I want you to make mistakes, but if you do this and then there are no corrections in red when you send me the picture, then I believe that you haven't really done it. And I mean, I know you may not care too much, but it's important that you do it properly. Okay, so ready? I'll show one at a time so you find it harder to cheat. Okay, so for many years, the time goes together. For many years, I used to take my little sister to school. Okay, so the object and then the complement of place. Now, be careful when you ask the question, what did you used to do? My parents would often. It's also common when you use would to use often or always to emphasize this idea of repetition. My parents would always give me money. Normally, always is more common than often. Okay, so I used to. Okay, the object and then the complement of place. Okay, the verb, the frequency, and then the time. Okay, and the last one. So you can stop the video, you can play it back. Now, something important here, go back to page 13, me too. Now, we saw this in the other lesson, but it never hurts to see it again. Don't get confused with used to do, past, habit, and states with get used to doing. Not to be careful not to confuse, but you're going to do it. I mean, the other day you sent an exercise and you had confused it. You got it wrong, some of you. Okay, so ing. So I used to hate in the past. Do you used to in the past? But I was used to being alone. I got used to being alone. Remember, you can use it in the past, in the present, in the future with modal verbs. You must get used to it. You must be used to it. Okay, so it's something that happened, but you didn't mind. It says present, it should be, but you didn't mind it. Or in the present, I'm used to getting up early, so I don't mind. But it's not true. So in my case, I'm still not used to getting up early. I find it hard. All my life, I found it hard to get up early. Okay, so notice get used to or be used to ing. It's like something that you mind or you don't mind doing. I'm used to it. I'm used to getting up early, so I don't mind. I'm not used to getting up early, so I mind. Okay, so I mean, I've explained this 3 times in the last 2 weeks. It's up to you. Okay. So now number 2 is similar to the exercise we did in the grammar reference. Okay, on page 141 or something. Okay, try to understand whether both are possible or if only one is possible and why. It says explain your choices. Okay, so pause the video. Okay, pause the video to drink some water. Talking so much makes me thirsty. Okay, so please make sure you've done it first. You've thought about why. So my parents would always used to listen. Both are correct. Why? So if you got it wrong, think about why both are correct. 3, 2, 1. Listen is an action. Listen, there's move. Even if there isn't really movement, your brain is active. It's not like I have 2 children. And there's no action there. Okay. But I listen to is you are paying attention. Here, for example, here is not so much an action because you don't really do it on purpose. You hear something. Okay. So every year, again, would or used to go. So both are possible. Why? 3, 2, 1, go is an action. So they would go, especially when you have this emphasis, okay, of repetition. So every year they would go, they used to go. Now have, think about what kind of verb have is. 3, 2, 1. Okay, only used to is correct because 3, 2, 1. Have is a state verb, so you can say would have, referring to the past. You could say it in the conditional. If I were a millionaire, I'd have a Ferrari. Okay, I said it before. So would have. And my mother, okay, again, what kind of verb is no? 3, 2, 1. Only used to is correct because 3, 2, 1. No is a state verb. Either you know or you don't know. You are not doing an action. You know English. You're not really doing an action to know English. It's something that's in your brain. Okay, so this is important. Now, I know this is difficult, but what you can do, you can write some notes and then I'll check them when you send the picture. But you should really try to answer these questions using the structures that we've just seen, okay, so that you practice. Okay, if we do another Zoom lesson perhaps at the end of the week or next week, okay, we can try to do this. So, okay, my mother would listen to Jose Luis Perales. I don't know, perhaps your mothers are younger. Your mothers obviously are much younger than mine. Okay, but my mother would listen to Jose Luis Perales all the time. So I remember she was cleaning and I was at home and she would listen to that. Okay, what kind of music do you used to like and didn't used to like? I don't know. So I used to like pop music, I guess. So I used to like. Okay, what did you get used to? Or is there something you never got used to? So I got used to walking to school every day, 4 times, because I went home to eat. So I went in the morning, I came back at 12, I ate, and then I went back to school at 3, from 3 to 5, and then I walked back to school. I walked back home. So I got used to walking to and from school. Is there something you never got used to? I never got used to eating baked beans, like habas or judías cocidas. I never got used to eating. So remember, in number 3, you need to use ing. Okay, I never got used to, okay, having dinner at 12 or whatever. Okay, so you can make an effort to practice this. Now, this is about a guy who changed his life. Okay, then and now. He's a farmer, okay, granjero, but his life was one very different. Okay, so very important. Using present simple, I know this is confusing because you've just looked only at past, but here you may use present simple, present continuous, okay, an action happening, okay, present simple, states, opinions, used to or would, okay, would only for actions. So whenever possible, use would. Okay, we would go to concerts every weekend, whatever. Okay, sometimes more than one answer is possible too. Okay, yes. So very carefully, try to think about why it is one of those forms. Okay, according to the explanations we've given, or I've given you, and you've looked at in the book. Okay, sometimes it's true that a couple of answers are possible. Okay, so stop the video and try your best to choose the correct form. Okay, verb tenses are important because you use them all the time. You use the verbs all the time. Okay, so please try to think about why that is the correct. Okay, look at the whole sentence. Okay, so I'm going to start showing the answers. I'll explain all of them. Okay, if you have further questions, you can ask. Notice the lead vocalist is like the main one. Okay, the lead is like leader. So the lead or the leading vocalist is the one who sings. Okay, so I used to be. You can't say would because be is a state. Okay, so I used to be. You couldn't use past simple in this exercise. Okay, in the old days, record companies. So now here, this is an action give. So you have two options. You can say used to give or would. I said before that whenever possible, try to use would. Otherwise, you never use would because used to, when would can be used, when would can be used, used to is always correct. I would play football every weekend. I used to play football. So if you want, you can never use would. So make an effort to use would whenever possible, so that you show that you know how to use it. So would is correct here. I noticed the album was released. Okay, you have that in the ABCD exercise that you did last week. So notice. So you can again, go is an action, so you can say used to go, or we would go on tour because it's a repeated action. Go is an action verb. When we got back, so start is an action. So used to or we would start. Now we have. So here, have a lot of fun could be seen as an action. Okay, this is a bit. Sometimes have can be an action, like have a shower. Do you understand? So that have a shower is an action. So have fun is an action. Okay, so you could say we would have fun or we used to have a lot of fun. Okay, both are correct because this have fun is enjoy yourself. So it's an action. It's not possession. Okay, or state. Even though now, I don't know if I agree too much with this because have this obligation. We had to be away. No, in the past we had this obligation. So I would say this is not a state. Sorry, I would say this is that have to is a state. So I would say that you wouldn't be able to use would, in my opinion. I would say even though we used to have to be away, okay, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't use would here. Anyway, now notice that this is present. It's completely different these days. It's often necessary for musicians. Now be careful because you don't really need the present. You need the infinitive. Okay, so necessary for musicians to raise. Notice this structure. It's necessary for someone to do something. Raise money is to get money. Okay, by either working or asking for money. And again, release your record, release an album here. The crowded market, they okay, they're competing because of the crowded media market. They are competing. This is present continuous. It is something that is happening around this time. Now 9. Okay, this is like a situation. So they want new albums all the time. This is a fact. And so they want, this is present simple, and also, okay, so sorry. So you need present simple too. They want this and they also expect to hear. So expect again. Here it's present simple because it's like a state, a current state. Expect can be used with ing too, okay? Someone comes to your house and say, oh, I wasn't expecting you. But it's like no esperaba que vinieras. Okay. So present continuous because it is happening around now. Again, find it difficult to this one. Necessary for someone to do. I find it difficult to do something. Okay, to get noticed, get used to, become accustomed. So around this time, they are finding it difficult around this time. Okay. So and then in 5 again. in pairs, but you don't have pairs. Sorry. So how has accessing music? Notice you access music, okay? Or you have access to music, but you access something. Do you follow any music? So for example, in the past, we would just listen to the radio or we would buy tapes or CDs. However, now most people just stream their music, okay, either on YouTube or using Spotify or similar application, okay, or you just, if you buy it digitally. You may not buy the physical record. Do you follow? Okay, so you can talk about this. Okay, I don't really follow anyone, or yes, I like to follow this one because. And how has your music taste changed? Okay, so it hasn't changed much because I guess I listen to the same kind of music. Okay, so try to answer this question. You can write some notes, or at least speak to your computer so you make an effort to speak. And I'll mark it. And whenever we have a Zoom lesson, we can come back here and do this. Normally, probably when we have another speaking lesson, okay, like in every unit you have a speaking. Okay, for example, this is grammar. There's another part which is reading, listening. So when we have the speaking one, we'll try to do the speaking exercises that we couldn't do. Okay, so you can take some notes so that when we do it, it will be easier. And that's it. Thank you very much. Bye.